Welcome back to the GSTL. Time for Bjol up against Sculpt.
It indeed is, and right now the question that Jimmy just asked in this intro is of course one that we have to ask Fnatic. What's the plan, guys? Yeah. Will Bjol be able to take down Sculpt? It's one of the first things, and the other thing is who's going to be the next player? Not only for NSOSA, but also for Fnatic.
The order for NSOSA is the most important, obviously, as they only have 5 players left, or 5 players on their entire roster, so only 2 players left to choose from.
Grand Lagoon is the map that Bjol picked. This is something that I did not expect at all.
Yeah, you and I both discussed the possibilities. For example, if you pick Entombed, then Tassler can't use that against you. If you pick Whirlwind, it's a great map for Zerg, but Grand Lagoon is just a map that not a lot of people have experience on in general.
And of course we have another very good map for Zerg, for Protoss against the Zerg player. So if Bjol wins here and would have picked Entombed, then Tassler would have chosen Metropolis.
Very true. That's a good point as well.
Yeah, so if this map is actually, I mean, we are always assuming here that Bjol is able to win this if we talk about the maps. On the other hand, of course, if Sculpt takes down Bjol right now, then suddenly...
Then it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, then suddenly Fnatic is on this last leg.
Well, we'll find out if they can take him out here. This is the GSTL NSOSA against Fnatic, cast by Counter and Wolf. Feed my motor!
Starting at the bottom left of Grand Lagoon, in the red we have the NSOSA player. He took down Rain, now he's facing Bjol. His ID is...
He had the most perfect split I have ever seen, by the way. It's like better than the auto mining in Heart of the Swarm. He actually should program that AI.
Well, he needs it. He's up against a strong Zerg player. Starting to the top right, cross positioned. We have the Zerg in the blue. Starting for Fnatic. It is
Fnatic late call, Bjol!
And speaking of splitting, you know, if that change remains, which it likely will in Heart of the Swarm, there will no longer be splitting in that expansion. What's your opinion on this? Actually, I haven't really had time to talk to you about this too much. I'm kind of curious how you feel about the new auto mine.
A lot of players complain about it a little bit because it takes one thing away that you have to do. But to be honest with you, I don't think that on a pro level there is actually a huge advantage between the players or a huge discrepancy when it comes down to the splitting. It's something that you can do in the early game, but it just helps people who have this early game lag. That's the original idea of why the auto mining is being integrated in the game. And while I can see why people complain about it a little bit, I don't think that it makes a huge difference. This one change is, in my opinion, in my book, that's definitely a good change, because some people have the starting lag when the map starts, and the only thing that this change really does is help those people.
Yeah, and I echo everything you just said. I mean, there's not much I can even add to what you said. I think it's a great change that helps those players who sometimes have that lag at the start.
It's not like you watch Marine King against MVP and you say, oh my god, he split so much better, he has an advantage, you know?
This is one of the first times I've ever seen someone split, and I got excited by it. And I will tell you that I looked at the minerals afterwards, and he was like maybe 1/3 of a second ahead with like his mining. It was just so insignificant because did Bjol mess up his split? No, so it was just a tiny little thing, and it's quite insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
If Blizzard would introduce a button that you have to press as a Terran player as soon as you see Banelings and the Marines would auto-split, that would be something where I would be a little bit worried about, probably a lot, but with the auto mining, I'm fine with that. It's a little bit weird at the beginning and it's unusual, but I can see why it was implemented, because the problem is there. There are people who have this starting delay at the beginning of a game, and that's all that this is accomplishing.
What are your thoughts, again, since we have just a little bit more time here, is basically Commander first versus Hatchery first, with the gas already been taken for the Terran player. What are your thoughts on the select all army button?
I actually don't really know about that. I mean, I can see that it's that you can use it if you kind of lost units on the map and you don't know where they are.
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge fan of the button in general. It's like I mean, when does that actually come into play, especially on a high level when you are in the late game, then you always want to make sure that you at least split your units a little bit, so having all of them in just one group doesn't help you all that much. But I'm not really sure if that's a change that is really necessary and why that was implemented. So that would be definitely one of the examples where I would say, okay, this is not something that we really need, and that's really useful. So I personally don't like it too much.
I'm on the fence about it. I think that one thing it does really encourage, for example, is using 1, 2, and 3 for separate hotkeys for different army groups, because if you don't have to, because most people do, even pro gamers have one hotkey for their entire army, then they have other things that specifically for high tempo, for example. So it encourages, I feel, more usage of another key, but you could also just bind one of your hotkeys to another location as well. So
the thing is, I mean, we've seen Overlord being taken out right now, guys, so that's the only thing that happens right now. It probably might actually survive.
Yeah, he's going to survive. And one other thing to say just really briefly is that he's actually going into 3 barracks behind this reactor Hellions, which is very unusual.
Coming back to your point, by the way, the one thing that players don't use right now are all 10 keys on the board. So it taking away one key, that's actually not something that I would list as an argument. And the thing is, imagine a Protoss versus Terran. As a Protoss player, you always have a couple of units in your main base because you want to intercept drops. So you can't really use the key. If you do use it, then suddenly those units are just gone.
For example, if you have a Viking on the map trying to hunt Overlords or something, then you want to use it, then your Viking gets grabbed in. So there's some disadvantages, but this is a pretty interesting way that we're seeing Sculpt follow up here. He's actually not going for Banshees at all. Almost everybody is doing that as follow-up with their Reactor Hellions, but he's just going straight into the barracks, which means he's going to have faster eBay upgrades, and he's also going to have that Marine count built up quite early.
I mean, if you think about it, he will have a really, really strong force in the early game, and he will have like heavily upgraded Marines. He will have a lot of them. He will have Stim. He will most likely also have the combat shield. Going to hit with the timing here, and with the Starport and the timing that he chose in order to build it, he will have the first few medivacs out as well. So this could be a very strong timing attack by Sculpt, just being designed to take down the third phase of Yal, who's currently starting with speed and also with the double evolution chamber. He's made a ton of building upgrades.
You know, yeah, you're right. He's got a ton of lings out right now. 24 already. That delays his drones ever so slightly. And it may be a slight overreaction to Hellions, because in fact, only a few were made, and then he immediately moved his factory. He's going to start siege tank production very soon as well. This map is a pretty tough map to take a third base on. Third base very much so points away from your natural. It's kind of far away. And as a Terran player, you feel very uncomfortable here taking the third base to the right. I think he'll probably take the one that's close to his main, so if things get hairy, he can lift it up and move it back into his main base. Against Zerg, you're always going to be careful about that.
It's also the reason why he actually spreads his creep so aggressively to the side, so that he connects those bases, because the third is really exposed. And right now what we see on the map is, of course, also the lair tech for Bjarl, who tries to get his additional upgrades, but you're right, he has already a fair amount of Zerglings on the map to be a bit aggressive. Not too many, just 20, trying to run in, trying to find an opening, trying to control those watchtowers. And have a look at his vision. It's crazy. He has Overlords everywhere. There are Zerglings controlling the map, controlling the expansions. He knows about the third of his opponent. And this drop is something that he spots immediately because of his Overlord positioning.
Yeah, he even has another ling to check on the left side as well, in case he missed the Overlord by chance. And now, Sculpt should know as well, okay, this drop is probably not going to do damage. He probably actually unrallied the drop. Yeah, so you just going to drop out here. Well, there's no way I can get away with it. I got to fight on open ground. He's going to trade well here and then just pick up.
Yeah, he only lost 2 Marines. He killed a fair amount of Zerglings, so that was really well done by him. And Bjarl is starting with a Spire here in his main base, so he wants to go for a heavy Mutalisk build. And this could, I mean, the thing about Mutalisk is you'd never want to fight Marines actually head-on, at least not in the early game, if your opponent has the superior numbers. But without Thors in the picture, this is actually something that could work for Bjarl. On the other hand, he needs to make sure that he's taking down this drop as fast as possible. Yeah. And so far he's doing a good job.
Yeah, great job of it. And this drops being shut down like this really negates the fact that he went for this faster push with these Marines. He's actually doing a decent job with them, and now he's going to go into the main base on another drop. But these drops have not done a lot of damage, which means that Bjarl is kind of spreading his creep out. The Hellions and Banshees did not actually slow down anything he's been working on here.
A great defense so far by Bjarl. The drop at the natural once again. Those medivacs are everywhere, but so far Bjarl does a decent job defending against them, and the Marines are just gone. And at this point, I actually don't think he has seen the Spire.
I don't think he has yet. I think you're right. He did see it actually.
Yeah,
but
he just saw it with those Marines that he dropped in the main base.
the upgrades are pretty similar for both players. Both of them getting 2-2 right now. Third command center is finishing up here. And he's just going to pick off 2 overlords on the outskirts of the base. This is a really cool way to make use of your drops that haven't spawned.
You know, right now, okay, there's the first missile turret. For a second I was really wondering if he did not realize that there was a Spire, that he just saw the building but didn't click on it, didn't know what actually was happening exactly. And now we look at the production depth. Super both of them roughly at the same time. And now the Medivacs is hunting down those, the Beetle is hunting down the Medivacs, and of course the Marines are just not enough for them anymore to do anything about it.
Picking off some creeper in the front. Great multitasking by Sculp. He's everywhere at once. The unit's lost tab is actually only 25 resources different. It's very even right now. So even though the drops have been trading pretty cost efficiently with the Lings on the ground, he did lose everything in those drops. And now the next phase of the game is going to be, of course, about how much the Beetleist can actually grant the control over the map. He's going to surround and trap these Marines so the Banelings can't connect. He needs to target those Banelings down. With only 2, I don't think he should have been splitting like that. He should have just targeted.
The Marines, they die, and the Mutalists take care of the Medivacs. Skull is pressured. He is 40 supply behind his opponent, and he does not have a third base. While Bjal now starts with the infested.
There's a lot of reasons why this Hellion Banshee play is the standard right now. It's because it grants you control of the map, it slows down your opponent's creep, it keeps him occupied. So the drop is one other way to approach this, but since he did so little damage with the drop, the defense was so good he couldn't do that damage. Now he's finding himself behind, he's out of position to defend this attack at his natural.
Yeah, he's really out of position. The tank already down, being annihilated by the Mutalists, and now they can run in at the natural at the same time. This push is running right into a lot of Zerglings and Banelings. He doesn't siege every time. He is not siege up. He doesn't even need the Banelings.
And he just blows them up on the tanks anyways. The drop's trying to find a location to attack here. And this game is being totally controlled by Bjal right now.
Bjal is kicking ass. He is really playing so well. 16 workers killed. He is 40 supply ahead once again. There is a third base. No Zerglings have been able to sneak in there. And now trading 1 Marine for 1 Baneling is of course a great trade for Skull. But this is still not worth it. He's losing so much.
Now he's going to lose both Medivacs, of course. Pathogen Gland's coming out right away. He's getting Overlord speed as well. And the Hive is coming. The Hive is coming at 15 minutes, and this is going to make Sculp so uncomfortable.
The Zerglings are coming as well.
He's
They're headed straight for this third.
Yeah. And he just has to lift it. That's exactly what he wants to force here. The Baneling's not able to connect, though. This is a mistake.
He's running in right now.
But
only 1 siege tag.
Yeah. Just waited too many Lings. Now you can trap the Marines. They've stimmed so many times. They've got no hit points. I think actually it's fight with Lings.
Oh, that was 1 happy Baneling.
Sculp is out of steam. He's down to 69 supply here.
Bjal is effortlessly taking down the Terran player of NSOSA. Takes down more and more Harvesters. He killed 33 over the course of the game. 33 against 66 Harvesters now.
Bjal is killed him with Zerglings alone now.
Bjal is literally doubling the work count of his opponent. GG.
What an aggressive game by Bjal. He took an advantage and grabbed onto it so tight. Just totally snowballed out of Sculp's control.
Bjal is looking at this and he's like, sup son, what you gonna do? And now NSOSA, what are they gonna do? I mean, they should really...
Dude, that game was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I cannot stress enough. Honestly, when you go for this medevac play, instead of the Banshees, you've got 2 choices. You make that choice, you've got to do some damage. Bjorn's defense was so good, he couldn't figure out how to... He couldn't figure out how to transition. His third base was so late. The creep spread was really good, and when you're going for this Ling-heavy style with Mutas, if you get your creep unhindered across the map, then it's very difficult for the Terran player to attack by ground. He can only drop, but then the Mutas are out, so how do you make the drops work? The Baneling hits were so good in that last fight, it was like, game over, man.
He crushed him. And now, well, guys, guess what the map is? It's, of course, Entombed Valley. Who could be the next player? I don't know, Wolf.
Man.
You think? Really?
No, this is when Von comes out of the closet. He just comes, he's like, hey guys, I'm back. I'm like, whoa. Where'd you come from? Where you been, man?
Jakji is going to be the last man standing for NSOSA before we see him. Tassadar gets a shot at taking down Fnatic. Both of these teams have 3 points. Both of them have 2 players left. For Fnatic, it's going to be Bjal and either Oz or Alive. And for NSOSA, it's going to be Tassadar and Jagchi. Tassadar on Entombed Valley tries to take down the Zerg player, and of course, what actually Fnatic tried to do was use Byal against Jagchi. That was the idea. Byal was the one player who was designed to take down the strong Terran player.
Yeah, and
he had to play against Sculp.
And now he had to play against Sculp. He showed himself a little bit here, but I feel like he just outclassed Sculp, didn't have to play in the late game really, and he can still fight Jagchi with a similar style. I think that's absolutely viable. He's not going to have the map pick though. For example, he probably wanted to play against Jagchi on a map like Whirlwind, but he can't do that now. He used this map instead. And this is just for the sake of the camera. We all know it's Tassar. Stand up, Tassar.
Come on, show it. Yes, there it is.
And, you know, we only have a few maps left, so the choice actually of Grand Lagoon is pretty cool now because he eliminated that map instead. Now he's still got World. He got to use a big map against Terra. Now he's still got probably Whirlwind.
But yeah, the thing is, Jagchi could choose. I mean, if Byal defeats Tassadar, the choice of Jagchi is actually a lost choice. Yeah. It's like, do I want to play on Whirlwind, a huge map, or do I actually want to play on Metropolis, where Terran players have like a 30% win ratio against Zerg?
And now when you think about it, the choice of Grand Lagoon actually just makes more and more sense as time goes on, as we're thinking about this. But he still has to go through Tassadar here on Entombed Valley. This is the one downside of the map choice, and it's a risk well chosen, I feel. Tassadar is known for all-ins, but he can play it well in the late game. His best late game matchup, though, is PvT, not PvZ. The map here is going to be his best friend. He's going to have to utilize this map very well. What's he going to do?
And what is Byal going to do? That's, of course, the big question here. Against the Protoss and Entombed, it's never easy for a Zerg, but there are several things that he can try to pull off. We have seen play with Drop, heading straight for a 200 Roach army and go against, usually used against Protoss, but sometimes against Terran as well, depending on what kind of the style Terran uses. But here, of course, against the Protoss player from NSOSA, it's what he can use. He can use on Antigua sometimes on this map as well. And you can just go for the late game and make this Vortex Valley game.
Yeah, that's absolutely a possibility. And one more win for either of these players puts their team into the lead and puts them into that spot where they've just got the final man standing. So these two players are the second to last. Obviously, we know Jagchi will be the last player no matter what.
A very, very close team battle.
Yeah. And, you know, it didn't start out that way. It's been very back and forth.
Yeah, that was really a very intense team match so far. And now the map is about to start. We have Tassadar up against the Byal, Fnatic against NSOSA. And this game, I mean, so much depends on the outcome of this match in particular.
It really does. Byal totally dominated his last opponent. Can he take out Tassadar, the player who's known for all-ins on the Protoss map? This is the GSTL cast by Counter and Wolf.